Hi everybody, this is Simone and I'm here with Billy Sheehan testing the new overdrive pedal.
Hi Billy, how's it going?
I'm doing good. Simone,
Good,
thanks
good.
for coming over and bringing your iPhone video
Yes,
so we can document my new pedal.
exactly, which is
This guy right here. It's the EBS Billy Sheehan Signature Drive.
great. So what made you think we needed one more overdrive in
Good
the
question.
world of distortion pedals?
Very good question because there's a billion of them. There's a lot of great ones out there too. A lot of great stuff. Bass overdrives are starting to get smart about it now. For years, you pull the camera over here for a second and take a look. These are my Pierce preamps. But basically what the Pierce did is it's got two channels.
Right.
One is completely clean and one is distortion. The clean stays on all the time, and the distortion, you mix in how much distortion you want.
So it's a combination of tones where you actually can keep the attack of a clean sound as well as the sustain and the body of a distorted sound, correct?
Exactly right.
That's
exactly
what it
what
is.
I'm doing. So with this pedal, what we did is we basically made two complete separate signal chains. There's a drive, like input gain for the distortion, the tone of the distortion, and how much distortion, and then just the level of the clean. So if I just turn the level of the distortion down, we got a regular.
So this is a clean sound, almost
Straight
like
up. Straight up bass. Real straight and simple. Now, what I suggest when people get this pedal is to start out with a great clean tone. It's got some compression built in. You can either turn it off. The mid position is internally adjustable. It's been my principle for a long time that distortion is a form of compression. It may not sound like it, but in effect they do the same thing. You have a sine wave, and it can only go so high or so low. That's dynamic range. Once you turn the input of your amp up and pushes it farther, the tops of it clip off. It clips them off and it turns square, and that's the sound of distortion.
Sure.
It actually, that does many other shape changes depending on the circuitry. But it won't go any more than a certain amount of dynamic range. So that's why you can get this great sustain and feedback and harmonics and stuff with distortion, because it's basically like you can get it with compression. Now compression does the same thing, only it does it with just by keeping the volume with a little squash, keeping that sine wave the same without squaring it off, but it doesn't let it go any farther than what this preset dynamic range is. So what happens a lot of time with bass, mixing it with distortion is naturally compressed, and the regular tone isn't. So they don't match up. The dynamics aren't the same. So with my Pierce for years, I got the right amount of compression on each thing so that the dynamic ranges are the same. So now this one here, just we got a little compression on it already. So the compression I got on it, I'm using this MXR bass compressor. It's a little white compressor. I like it because it's a 5-knob compressor. Input, output, attack and release, and then a ratio, like a pro audio compressor. Right. Sometimes compressors have 2 knobs or 3 knobs, but for me a 5-knob compressor is what you need. I like to have control over all those parameters. So this is, now the cool thing about it is I've got it in a loop. That's the one really special feature about this pedal.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a pretty unique feature.
Exactly. Here's the clean signal chain right here. It's got a loop. You see, clean loop. So I take a tip ring sleeve, a 3 conductor, plug it in.
Like one of those insert.
Exactly.
Labels.
And now
it goes in here.
There's the input and output, and it goes back in.
Oh, awesome.
So now the compression is built in there. Now, let's get back to the real reason why the pedal's here, which is the distortion.
Right.
So once you start to bring the distortion in, you can have any kind of distortion, like a little bit of input gain. So it's just a little bit of start to get a little bit of crunch. I generally run the drive pretty hot. Bring it up, we got it. As you hear, the regular tone, the normal bass tone, is unaffected.
Sure.
It's still there. You get that high distortion thingy. And it's also got a tone control on it, with just like a peak. Now if I turn the clean off, you'll hear it just the distortion. usually get like a mid-range around there, like a mid-range tone around there.
Right.
Bring the clean back in. The advantage of that is, in the real world, when you finally get to on stage and play, there's a clarity of the notes. So. Sometimes I'll put compression afterwards instead of in the loop. And it compresses both the distortion and the clean together. I tend to gravitate towards that more now, but I'm still getting used to have my hands get used to playing through this. Another thing I do, I was experimenting with a crossover. So I turn the clean off, use just the distortion. Got a lot of low end on that to start with, because you don't necessarily need a lot of low end. So I'll just plug that crossover into the loop, and I got so there's no low end on it at all. But when I bring the clean in, now the low of the distortion is not interfering with the low
Of the clean.
of the clean. Is right in there.
Yeah, man, that's a killer sound.
Yeah, it's so cool, and I think guitar players also are going to enjoy this.
I was going to ask you, do you think a guitar player is also going to benefit from...
Absolutely. The reason being, I've noticed a couple guitar players I know over the last few years on some tours, they set up a separate clean amp to go next to the distortion amp. So it just enables you to get that clean tone for articulation and note definition, and then all your other stuff comes out of your distortion crazy amp.
This pedal has two loops, one for the clean and one for the distorted.
Exactly right. So they both have their own separate loops. Right. So you can infinitely tweak it, which is great, because a lot of times a pedal, well, here's the pedal, here's the sound that you get for it,
and that's it.
And that's what you got. Where here you can put anything in the loop. Here, compression, a wah-wah pedal, chorus for the clean, whatever you wanted. Distortion, same thing. You put anything you want in here. What I have is this little, it's called a BMC. It's a bass mid-range control. So I get a little more peaky bass. It's got a lot of nice mid-range in there to really cut through and match up with the guitar without masking the tone of the guitar. Another problem you have with bass distortion is it will sometimes mask another distortion. It's like having two heavily distorted guitars playing together. One wipes out the other one. You can't really tell. So I generally try to put my distortion on bass in a lower mid-range section, so the guitar brighter on top of it. You hear it, and I'm not interfering with the sound of the guitar. There's still that clean definition of the regular bass. And it's as most bass players know, it's a tough road trying to get distortion out of your bass and make it functional. The distortion tone is very nice. It's a nice grindy tone. You can change the tone of the distortion, the amount of it, the character of it. Got built-in compression. Coolest thing is the built-in loops. One on the clean, one on the drive. So you can put EQ, more compression, different compression, effects, whatever you like. I would advise you can use effects like a chorus effect or a flange effect or even an envelope filter to use the drive loop and do it to the distortion, because there's so much more
to explore.
You want to keep your regular clean bass tone there all the time.
As much as possible. Exactly.
So you're going to put some wacky chorus thing on there or flanger. That'll be wisping in and out, and plus there's more of a white noise to the distortion, which will respond better to being chorused or flanged or phased or whatever else.
What kind of, as far as the distorted tone, did you think about a specific, do you have a specific tone in mind that you wanted to replicate, or?
Yeah, on tour recently, prior to this coming out, I used a Keeley modified tube screamer.
Gotcha.
Robert Keeley, great pedals. And I got one of his, oddly enough, I got it in Italy years ago. I was worried that my Pierces were going to get beat up. I only had one with me on the road. And luckily I had it, so I was able to use it as a distortion thing in an emergency. But I always loved the tone of it. But it's not a regular tube screamer. Robert Keeley, he smoothed it up and made it a little bit more musical, in my humble opinion, for my ears. So we use that a little bit as a template. So it's a little bit tube screamer, but it's got a little bit of a wave shaping circuit in there, very similar to the Pierce.
Gotcha.
The Pierce actually has some Moog synthesizer wave shaping circuitry, which makes a triangular wave into a sine wave. So what that means in real terms, you take a really harsh wave that's bright and shrill and harsh, this rounds it out a bit, gives it real smoothness. So we did a similar principle to the distortion in this pedal. So it's a little smooth, it's not quite as harsh. And on bass, you don't want that bright, harsh, shrill. You know, some smooth, woody tone that's going to sit in underneath the guitar player's tone. And so I think we achieved that very well. EBS is a great little company. I've used their octave divider pedals and a couple of their other pedals. They're in Sweden, they're made in Sweden, and they're great quality control, so that's really important. So I'm real pleased. EBS did a great job on this pedal, and I haven't heard from any guitar players yet, but I'm looking forward to that.
Wow, we sure will.
Great.
All right, Billy, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Ciao.
Ciao, see you.